Hello, welcome to the Farmyard Garden. My name is Claire and in today's video
I'm going to be relaying my woodchip paths. As I make my way around the vegetable garden, you can see that all of these woodchip paths are not looking their best at the moment. This is a job that I've been putting off since autumn, but to be honest, there's no better time than doing it now while there's not a lot else to be done in the garden. When you're setting up a new vegetable garden like I was in the autumn of 2023, one of your first considerations, aside from how you want to grow, be it in the ground or with raised beds, is what you're going to be using to make your garden pathways with. And I thought long and hard about this. The obvious solution would have been to use grass because this was a paddock at the end of the day, but I've decided that grass paths weren't going to work for me. There's so many options in pathways that you can choose when setting up a garden. I settled on wood chips for my pathway very early on for a variety of reasons. Mainly that I've got 27 beds here. That equated to 108 corners that I would have to be strimming around, not to mention the actual mowing of the pathways. And I didn't want to be spending precious time in this garden mowing and strimming pathways. Now you can slab everywhere, but that's incredibly expensive and really hefty work to do. And you can also lay down some gravel or hardcore. And I did consider that, but at the end of the day, it's a less organic option than using wood chips. Another consideration for me is that this is actually a very wet area of land, and by using wood chip I'm not slip sliding around on muddy paths, and even in the depths of winter I can wander out across here to check on the crops in a pair of Crocs or just a little pair of pumps. I don't need to be wearing wellies, which is far more comfortable on your feet. Wood chip paths are also very, very springy, so that's quite nice if you're spending hours out here to have that springiness underfoot. And because it's a wet piece of land, wood chip paths are really beneficial in soaking up some of that excess water. And now I have still had some minor flooding issues here in some really, really bad weather, but I do think that the wood chip has helped. I mean, you can see it now, it has soaked up a lot of the moisture that has been in the air and in the ground at present. You only have to take a quick look here on the grass where we were making the fruit cage extension last week to see just how quickly our grass would degrade here if we had it on grass paths. It's been fairly dry for the last week or so. And even though it is winter, we've made quite a mess here. Once I decided that I was going to use wood chips, the only thing I then had to decide was how I was going to lay them down. Was I going to put them directly on the ground, on top of cardboard, or was I going to lay them on membrane? Now I opted for membrane, which I know is a fairly controversial option for me because I'm putting lovely organic wood chips here, but I'm putting them on top of a fabric membrane. This was such an established pasture land with quite a few pernicious weeds in here that I really needed to know that I was doing my utmost to keep the perennial weeds in check. Wood chips are generally quite easy to get hold of and very cheap, far cheaper than the solution of gravel or slabs for this area. If you're struggling to get hold of wood chips, then the best thing you can do is have a look on community pages, get some details of your local tree surgeons or arborists and see if they can help you out with a delivery. Now I did have to pay for mine, but it was a really nominal amount for the amount of wood chips that I got. Now before I start putting some of this down, what I really need to do is go and have a little look around the vegetable garden and decide which paths need completely replacing. Some areas of the garden have been so wet over the last 2 winters that they've really broken down enough now that they just need to be removed. I don't want to be topping them up. Now the path here between the asparagus bed and the ochre bed is one such area, because if you look at this, this is really still quite wet in here, and whilst it's not turned into soil yet, you can see that it has broken down quite significantly. So what I'm going to be doing is taking this up, but I will be using it as some mulch on garden beds. Another thing to do is also to be looking for any weeds and pulling them up at the moment, and I've got a few bits of grass growing in here. But one of the good things about wood chips is just how easily weeds do come out of it. Now this does look like a lot of work, but I'm not going to have to do this all over the garden. Woodchip is generally a low maintenance solution, and for the most part I'm just going to be topping up what's already there. Now I can't deny that this isn't heavy work, but you know, if I was buying compost anyway to tip onto these beds, that would still be heavy work. But by using this rotten down wood chip, I'm actually saving myself money as well. And now I've got this cleared, I can start to tip some fresh wood chip in. Now I realise it doesn't look that fresh because obviously even this wood chip is wet. But as you can see, it's not compost coloured wet. First little section done there. Looks better already, even though it's still wet. And again, just to remove any doubt over why I chose wood chip paths, look at the state of this here. And I've only walked over it a couple of times while doing this. I need longer arms to reach in the back of the telehandler bucket. Not sure that it is immediately obvious on camera that I have done this entire section now. Now, I'm saying this is a low maintenance way of having paths, and obviously this is a lot of work and it's very tiring. But I'm doing this once every 15 to 18 months or so. Whereas obviously in spring, summer and early autumn, I will be mowing that grass and strimming once a week at least. Now you can put down your wood chip path as thick or as thin as you choose. It's entirely up to you. What I really like about the wood chip is that it actually helps you even up uneven spaces. I have it down a lot thicker in certain areas of this vegetable garden than I do in others, simply because the ground is uneven in some areas. And that's another good thing that it's great for. You know, if you were putting slabs down in here, you'd need everywhere to be perfectly flat. But with wood chip, it's so forgiving because you can fill in those uneven bits to give yourself a nice flat surface overall. What's really good about it as well is all the mycelium that's already in here. It's not been stood that long. I think we had it delivered around October time. And even though I have a membrane underneath the wood chip, nutrients will still leach through that membrane into the soil below and eventually seep their way under the beds as well. I'm really pleased with the difference so far I have done all the way along this section now. And if you compare that pathway with the pathways on this side of the plot, which haven't yet, I think you'll agree that it is looking much better. Just topping it up on top of the paths is not too difficult. It was harder work the section that I did remove, and I'm quite happy to just be laying it on top. After all, some people do just put it straight on the ground anyway, so I'll carry on, see how much more I can get done. Another good thing about the wood chip paths, if you go and have a good dig around, you can see that they do support a lot of life. You can see worms in here, and there'll be other bugs and beetles, and these worms in turn support the birds, who are probably the biggest pests when it comes to wood chip paths. You regularly will come across in the mornings and find the path slightly displaced because blackbirds are absolutely obsessed with digging in the wood chip paths. But you know, it's feeding them as well, and that's not bad. It's supporting plenty of wildlife, even on top of membrane like I have it. Another thing you do seem to find with wood chip is that slugs don't seem to like walking across it. And that's always a bonus for a gardener. Haven't finished the paths yet, and we are approaching sunset, so I will carry on into dusk here, but I think we can all agree that It's made a huge difference. So if you have taken on an allotment or you are planning a new garden, I hope that this video has helped you make some decisions on whether or not to choose wood chip as your pathways. Look after yourselves. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.